How's it going, everybody? I wanted to first off wish everyone out there a happy Memorial Day. A lot of thanks out there to the men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. So, a salute to all of you. Have you ever wanted to know what it takes to get yourself to that six-figure salary range, the 100,000 or more per year income level? Well, it's a question I get pretty consistently, and it's not normally through the normal channels that I normally get stuff through. So what is something that we can do in order to do that? In this video, we're going to talk about how you can set yourself up with $1,000 or around $1,000 investment to earn yourself a six-figure salary. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like. Okay, so when it comes down to labbing things up and learning new technologies and things like that, there's usually a pretty steep ramp-up period of time. Anyone that's ever spent any time certifying or working on a certification, whether it's CCNA, VCP, MCSE, you all know where I'm coming from. But how do you get there, right? What is the steps that you need to go through as a engineer that's trying to get from A to B and then from B to C and then from C to D, etc.? Well, the main thing you need to do, especially if you're starting out at the entry level and you're hitting like, say, CCNA and stuff like that, well, Packet Tracer is going to be a great first step. It's free. You can run it locally on your computer and stuff like that. But what about after CCNA? What do you do? And one of the common things that I tell people on a regular basis is that once you get your CCNA, get out of Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is going to be the biggest detriment to you if you continue moving forward. It's great for up to and including CCNA, but anything beyond CCNA, if you're serious about networking or any other vertical, whether it's Microsoft, VMware, cloud, whatever your interest might be, get out of Packet Tracer. Get yourself on some real equipment. And I have a few things that I'm going to be sharing with you guys as we continue to move forward and go through what it is that you need to take into consideration. Now, I'm going to break down my process, what it is that I did, and things like that. So the next evolution for most people, once they have a CCNA done and everybody's, you're good to go with that, is to typically go the GNS3 route, which means you can download GNS3 from the GNS3 website. It's free to download, and you install it locally on your computer. If you have a decent computer with like an 8-core processor and you got like 32 gigs of RAM, you can run a decent sized topology. And if you happen to have access to the Dynamips images, the 7200 router, the 3725 router, things like that, you can take those operating systems and you can associate them to GNS3 and then run virtual routers on your computer. And then you have to play around with some other things like your CPU limiting and things like that to get the idle mode to where you want it to be. But once you have that, you're good to go. Now that's how I evolved from Packet Tracer. The next step was GNS3, which definitely helped me go from CCNA to CCNP. But you don't have to do GNS3 if you don't want to. And even though GNS3 is still widely used by a lot of people, I don't use it anymore. I haven't used GNS3 in probably 4 or 5 years. I've switched over to EVE-NG about that same point in time, and my first step out of GNS3 was to start playing with virtual routers and deploying OVAs inside of VMware, and that worked out pretty well. And then I came upon EVE-NG, but back then it was known as UNL, Unified Networking Lab, and I couldn't get it to work. I had a lot of issues getting it to work, couldn't figure out how to. So long story short, I decided to forego trying to get it to work, and I stayed on the OVA thing and using virtual switches and 802.1q tags, and that's how I did a lot of my CCIE preparation, was going that route. Well, that worked out pretty well until I got to the point where, okay, I need to take this a step further. I needed to learn ASA, I needed to learn Nexus, I needed to learn wireless LAN controllers, I needed to learn a whole bunch of different things. At about that same point in time, I also was learning VMware because there was jobs that I was working on that I needed to be better with VMware. So what I had done is I bought a server. I bought the first server that I ever bought was a Dell C1100. This is probably 7, 8, 9 years ago. At this point in time, I honestly don't remember specifically when. That's why I'm giving you kind of a wishy-washy answer. I bought this server and I installed VMware on it. Back then, I think it was ESXi 5 or 5.1. I installed ESXi on it, and it had like 24 gigs of RAM. It did the job, right? I was able to deploy some OVF templates. I was able to deploy a Windows 7 PC and install GNS3 on it and run GNS3 for a while there. There's actually quite a few videos of me demoing that type of stuff on this YouTube channel a long time ago. And then as time progressed, I went directly to the OVA thing once I realized that CCIE was going to be using CSR 1000Vs on 15.4 code. So, because back then the CCIE lab tested on 15.3. Now I think they're at 15.6 or 15.8. But irregardless of the situation, what ended up happening was I needed to come up with a game plan in order to make this thing happen. So the first initial investment was the server. So I did a lot of research on what to buy and all that type of stuff, but I didn't really know a lot about servers. I've learned a lot about servers since then. And I've got a couple of recommendations. I've got another tab open in or Google Chrome window with a bunch of tabs open. I'm going to switch over to my desktop here and walk you through kind of my flow of the direction I went with. So let me go ahead and switch over to my desktop. Oops, one second. So here we have the server that I would recommend all of you buy. For around $500 to $600, this is the server that I would recommend. This is a Cisco UCS C220M3. If you want to play around with some of the different options, you don't have to buy Cisco. It's just what I happen to recommend. You can buy a Dell, you can buy an HP, you can buy whatever form factor or base one that you want. It's up to you and how you want to proceed with that. But this is the one that I happen to have. I've used quite a bit, and it's a great server. It gives me a lot of flexibility. It allows me to play around with a lot of different things. Where it comes into play is you need virtualization, right? This is a box that definitely works well with virtualization. If we were to click around, you're gonna see all the cool parts of it, but it's gonna give you a lot of scale. And the cool thing about this is with 32, when you have two 8-core processors and you have a 2.6 gigahertz, you're going to end up coming up with 32 logical CPUs with hyperthreading turned on, and you're going to have 128 gigs of RAM to work with. That's going to give you a lot of latitude to play around with. So you're not only going to be able to learn VMware, you're not only going to be able to learn Cisco, but you're going to be able to learn Microsoft and the servers and Linux and a bunch of other stuff. The next thing that I would recommend you guys go out and do is after you buy the server is you're going to need operating systems to work on. So I would definitely recommend the Cisco Modeling Labs. It's a $200 investment, and the cool thing about it is it gives you all of these operating systems right here. So you get to play around with regular enterprise infrastructure, Cisco Route Switch. Then you got Nexus and Nexus 9000V. You've got iOS XR and iOS XR 9000. You've got iOS XE, the CSR 1000V. You have the ASA. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how to play around with the technologies and things like that. So the cool thing is it gives you the flexibility to play with these technologies, and you can integrate them as well. So now that you pay the $200, you download all these instances, and away you go. Now, one thing that I always recommend is learning VMware. So go get yourself a vMug Advantage license. So it's $200 a year. You pay the $200 a year, guess what? You get access to all this cool stuff. So you also get a percentage off training discounts. You get the 365-day evaluation license. You get a VMware World discount, test drive by VMware. You can play around with a lot of stuff. And if you click on this little guy here, it opens up the eval experience. And the cool thing about the eval experience is it gives you access to literally every platform that VMware puts out. So you get to play around with vCenter Server, you get to play around with vSphere, ESXi, Cloud Foundation, Tanzu for doing containers, vCloud Director. You get NSXT for data center. You get Verni, which is vRealize Network Insight, vSAN, SRM, vRealize Orchestrator, vCloud Suite. You get Horizon Advanced Edition or vRealize Operations for Horizon. You get Virtual Desktop if you wanted to run Workstation Pro and things like that. So you'll have access to all the operating systems as well as, and this is the best part, the licensing that goes along with it. So the licensing comes with it. You get a 365-day license, and that's really the big win here. You get a long-term license that goes with it. Now, because of the fact that you're going to have the vSphere bits, you'll be able to download ESXi and license it for a year. And then you're going to take and download the ESXi. You're going to install ESXi on your server. And then once you have ESXi installed on your server, you're going to want to deploy something to run the CML images. The best way to do that would be to, you guessed it, download Eve. Download Eve. I run both professional and the community versions. It works out really, really well. And the cool thing about it is when you don't have to pay for Eve if you don't want to. Now, if you want to run this, I recommend that you do. You download the community version if you want to run it for free. But if you want to run it and have all the advanced capabilities and cool stuff that goes along with it, guess what? You're going to want to buy the license for it. I believe the license is $120. Yeah, it's $120 with taxes. It comes out to be $126. So I definitely recommend you do that. You download Eve, install it, license it. It comes pretty quick. It's a couple of hours and you're going to be licensed, and you're going to be able to take all of your images that you downloaded from Cisco, and then you're going to be able to upload them to your EVE-NG server and be able to deploy it with that. So you're going to be able to run EVE-NG, you're going to be able to run VMware, so you'll be able to deploy vCenter Server and a bunch of other stuff. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and show you kind of what it is that I'm doing here. This is one of 2 servers that I have in my home lab. Let me go ahead and show you real quick what this looks like. Let me go ahead and drag and drop this guy over here. Let me go ahead and log in to my server. There we go. So here, as you can see, I've got a lot going on. If I click on virtual machines, I have a lot of virtual machines running. I have Eve Pro, like I said, running Eve Pro. I've also got Cisco Call Manager. I've got NSX. I've got the virtual router running there. I have a couple of ESXi hosts running here. I got a data center, the vCenter server appliance. I have a network monitoring server. I have NSXT Manager. I have a second data center. I have some more additional ESXi hosts. So on and so forth. So it gives me a lot of flexibility when it comes to playing with how everything comes into play. So I can play with all that, plus I can learn VMware. If I want to learn Microsoft, I can deploy Microsoft inside of my ESXi environment, and I can learn how all of it comes into play. So the cool thing about this is it gives you a lot of latitude. So let me go back over here. Why spend the money? Well, the reason why you want to spend the money is a small investment up front in your career will allow you to learn a whole bunch of additional things on the back end. So do you need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on hardware, like going out and buying a Nexus 7000 or buying a UCS B series chassis, or going out and buying HyperFlex, or insert your platform you have going on? Depending on the situation at hand, you may have to go out and, get access to stuff like if you need Palo Alto, or if you need access to a vendor that doesn't just allow people to download after a registration. You just have to work with that vendor. Reach out, be like, hey, I'm studying for this exam, this, that, or the other. Maybe they'll be cool and let you have access to an eval copy. I don't know. But things that you can pay for and gain access to with a small monetary upfront cost, that's going to be huge. I pay about $500 a year for access to different things. And guess what? That's going to be Cisco Modeling Labs, vMug, and Eve Pro. $500 a year allows me to keep all of my access working. It works wonderfully. And it gives me a lot of flexibility. Why am I able to do this? Because I've put the time and effort into building out the environment so I can do that. This is stuff that I recommend you all do as well. It's worth the time. It's worth the effort. So if you want to take yourself from here to here, you have to put the time in to do that. And there's only one way to do that. You have to have some sort of base platform. Do you have to go out and spend a ton of money on online rack rentals? No, you don't. Not everybody has the means and capability to do what it is that I'm doing here. Some people live in an apartment, or they live in their housing situation doesn't allow for it, and I completely understand that. I'm not saying do something to piss people off, but what I am saying is if the opportunity presents itself for you to take yourself to the next level and play around with it, that's something I also recommend doing. So this is some of the hardware. Another one that I recommend you guys do is go get yourself an O'Reilly account. So let me go ahead and jump back over here to my desktop. This is right here. Go get yourself a Safari O'Reilly account. So go to learning.o'reilly.com/home, and then you can go ahead and look at the pricing for a whopping 50. Well, it's gone up in price, but for a small nominal fee per month, you get access to all kinds of stuff. This is where all of the Cisco Press titles go. Anything that's done for Cisco Press is up here. They offer video courses, there's books, there's an app for it on your iPad, for your phone, so you can basically have it anywhere you want. And that's something I also recommend you guys go do. One other thing that I will recommend would be an INE account. INE is great for if you're dealing with Cisco. If you want to learn VMware, I'd say that CBT Nuggets is more or less the direction you want to go with VMware. But also do your research. You might not like the direction I send people in. That's okay. It's just recommendations and some advice. But that's up to you. If you don't want to go that way, that's completely up to you on how you want to handle that. Regardless of which direction you go with, I wanted to put together a quick little video on how an $1,000 investment was able to net me a 6-figure plus salary. If that's what you want to learn how to do, if that's the steps that you want to go through, what it is that I used, this is the stuff that I used. So hopefully that will answer some questions, get you guys on the right track. I want to, again, thank you guys so much for stopping by. We're nearing that 24,000 subscriber mark, so if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get alerted anytime a new video drops. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.